and this is Tales of a New Witch. For this episode, I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about Samhain and how I am incorporating that holiday into my craft. Okay? So it's one of the main ways that I incorporate this into a holiday for me. This is my second year celebrating Samhain. And the main way that I want to incorporate this holiday into my life is by spending some time honoring my ancestors, which right now is just my immediate ancestors, which are my grandparents. And one of the ways that I honor my grandparents, I have been honoring them, is through cooking. My grandmothers, both of them, taught me a lot about cooking. So for this episode, I am going to bring you guys into my kitchen and I'm going to make some cookies while I talk to you. Okay, so these cookies that I'm going to make are from my father's mother, so my paternal grandmother, and they are her famous sugar cookies. And literally every single time we visited, I called her Mamaw, so Mamaw. Every time we visited Mamaw, she would make these cookies. You know, they're just a basic sugar cookie recipe, but she did a little twist with them. Instead of making actual cookies, she put them in a sheet pan and cut them into bars. But anyway, so she always had the ingredients on hand, and literally anytime we went over there, she would make them. So they're super important to me in that I cannot think about these cookies or eat sugar cookies without thinking about my grandparents. You know, the ones on my paternal grandmother and my grandfather too, of course. Anyway, actually when I was getting married, so I got married young, and I actually went to her and watched her make the cookies and wrote it all down step by step, because she didn't have a recipe. You know, it was all in her mind. She didn't use a recipe for anything, I don't think. You know, everything was by heart. So I actually wrote down this recipe because it was that important to me, even as a teenager, that I wanted to take it with me when I got married. And so I've been making these cookies for 20 years now, but they don't taste the same, which is so weird, because I've even made them for my dad, who, you know, was her son, and he said they taste the same. But I guess to me, I'm making them, my grandma's not making them, so they just can't be exactly her cookies. I'm sure it's just like a mental thing with me. You know, they're awesome. They taste good. Everybody loves them. My kids, you know, they've become a tradition for them. I've shared them with my friends. You know, nothing wrong with the cookies. They just, to me, they're not quite my grandmother's cookies. But anyway, that's besides the point. So for Samhain, what I like to do, what I did last year and what I'm doing this year, is to make these cookies and leave some out on my ancestor altar. I am also making a separate batch of cookies that my other grandmother taught me on my mom's side. And those are pretty common cookies. They're no-bake cookies, for those of you that have heard of them. But they're also very, very good. But again, I associate those cookies with her. I never had them at my dad's side. Those cookies were only made on my mom's side. And just like the sugar cookies were only made on my dad's side of the family. So they're completely, you know, like two separate recipes that my grandmothers, you know, made for me growing up that, you know, became individual to them. So they, you know, they're good memories for me. And even before I learned about Samhain and about honoring my ancestors and stuff, I made these cookies, you know, every year around this time of year. And And when I'm making these cookies, I think of my grandmothers. You know, I talk to them and I reminisce about things that we did together and go through my memories with, you know, all of my grandparents when I make these cookies. So, you know, I've been honoring them and making this special occasion with them for years and years, and, you know, didn't really realize, you know, I guess the significance of it until I started learning about Samhain last year. So now I'm doing it exactly the way I always did it before. I'm just doing it with the purpose and the intention to honor them in a way for this time of year. But yeah, so anyway, I'm gonna keep talking as I'm making the cookies, and hopefully this works out well. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna make these sugar cookies that my Mamaw always made. I often make these cookies with my kids too throughout the holidays. You know, I do almost all of my baking during the holiday time, and I share these recipes with them, have them help me, you know, make them, which then, of course, helps to carry on the tradition. You know, teaching them about these cookies. It is becoming their, you know, tradition as well as they're growing up. One of the things that I learned about, one of the things that I found really interesting and nice, like I like this aspect, is that how much Samhain let me rephrase that. How Halloween has taken so many things from Samhain and incorporated it into our holiday of Halloween, right? So, like, you know, how we carve jack-o'-lanterns. Traditionally, during Samhain, pagans would carve not only pumpkins if they had them, but gourds or radishes or turnips. Would carve, you know, carve out the inside so that they could put a candle in there, which now we do with jack-o'-lanterns. But it's kind of the same concept, right? You know, it's about carving a gourd and lighting a candle to help keep the bad spirits away. And that's why we do that. And that, you know, originally was something that pagans did in Samhain. So I like learning about how it's all interconnected. It's not so different, you know, from our traditions already. You know, a lot of the things I've already been doing all of my life for Halloween has pagan origins, which I found really comforting, and just it's easy, right? I mean, it makes things, it flows easier. It feels more natural since you're already doing, you know, those things anyway. I don't know. Just one of the things that I think about when I'm learning. Anyway. So yeah, so I like how, you know, the jack-o'-lanterns. One of the other things that struck me too that was so similar is the trick-or-treating itself, because with traditionally with Samhain, the pagans would put food out outside and leave it on their porch for the passing spirits so that they would pass over their house and, you know, move on. It was an offering of sorts. So we have turned it into trick or treat where children, you know, dress up as spirits and goblins and whatever, and we give them candy so that they won't bother us and they will move on, right? So it's, you know, very similar. I don't know. I just thought those kind of things were really cool. So now, you know, with these cookies, which I'm getting flour everywhere, the way I mostly had them was with vanilla flavoring. But my grandmother, she had 3 boys, and they each had different tastes, obviously. So she would make the same exact recipe of sugar cookies when they were kids, and she made, for one boy, she made the recipe and used orange flavoring, and for another she used lemon, and then for my dad, who's very plain Jane, she used vanilla. So I always thought that was funny. But I mean, it's also a really cool idea that these cookies can, you know, it's a basic recipe, you know, just a basic sugar recipe, cookie recipe, so you can play with it however you like. Adding different flavorings. I do vanilla because that's the one that I had the most growing up myself, was vanilla. You know, when I was writing this recipe down, you know, years ago, like I said before I got married, I had a hard time when I was watching my grandmother do this because, you know, like I said, she didn't have a recipe, so she didn't even measure. She would just she literally would just get a spoon and add the baking powder. And I remember asking her, well, how much was that? Because it was just a little bit of a spoon. And she's like, oh, I don't know, about to that, to there, just this much, you know. But again, that's one of the traditions for doing this, right? Because those kind of things come back to me as I'm cooking, mixing these cookies up. Those little memories. Even my grandfather, I've always loved pickles and olives, you know, when I was a kid. And that was another thing that my grandparents were always getting, is whenever they knew we were coming over, my grandpa would go out and buy me a jar of pickles and olives. So, and grapes. Grapes were a big thing too. Food is big with grandparents, right? I don't know. Food memories, for me anyway, food memories are big with my grandparents. Which is a good thing, you know, because food is a part of your life all day long, right? So being able to see something or hear something or smell something and brings back memories of your loved ones. Okay, so this is what they look like after they're all mixed up, and you pop them in a pan like this. Almost looks like cake, but it will end up really yummy cookies, which I'll show you in a little bit. Okay guys, so while those cookies are in the oven, I am working on the chocolate no-bake cookies. I thought I would show you guys in my kitchen here that I do have a little ancestor altar. Okay, so like I was saying, here is my little ancestor altar. Keep it right here in my windowsill, actually, with the sink, as you can see, my sink. Just a little something. Have some plants and a candle. offerings. I have a little offering plate and a plant. This is just something that I was working on. But this, I keep here. This was my grandmother's. Her favorite color was purple, and these are actually her beads that I got. So I keep these here to help make it more of an ancestor altar, I guess, because it's got a piece of my ancestor on it. And like I said, I will be doing a nicer setup for Samhain, but this, just wanted to show you guys what I have of all the time. This is my little mini altar for my ancestors. Okay, so I have whipped up a batch of my other grandmother's cookies. These are the chocolate no-bake cookies. And they're cooling off just a bit so that I can set them out. If anybody wants the recipes for these cookies, just let me know in the comments and I'll gladly share. They're both pretty easy and basic to do. But since this is not really a cooking show, this is me talking about how I'm honoring my ancestors for Samhain. I'm not trying to do a step-by-step, just anyway, you get the picture. Realize that my grandparents are not my only ancestors, but for now they're the ones that I know the best. So they're the ones that I would go to the most when I'm wanting to honor my ancestors, wanting to spend time, thinking about them and bringing them into my life now. And honestly, doing these cookies every year is a really big way for me to do this because of making these special cookies. Being in the kitchen is what helps me connect with them. I really feel connected with them while I'm doing this. So, this is how I celebrate Samhain, or how I have started celebrating Samhain. Like I said, I've always kind of done this for years now. I just didn't realize that this was me honoring them by spending time in the kitchen, with my memories, baking. But and now I just do it purposefully, I guess you could say. I do it with the intention of spending time with them, and I do. I don't talk out loud because then my family thinks I'm even more crazier than they already do. But I have really detailed conversations in my mind, with my grandparents. Last year, when I wanted to do something specifically for Samhain, this is what I thought of. Because I read about the silent supper, the dumb supper, I think it's called. But I haven't done that yet. I just guess I'm just not quite there yet. It's one of the things about learning the histories and stuff of witchcraft and paganism. It's nice that you can just, you go at your own pace. So I'm adding it in as I go. And for now, I'm not ready to do a silent supper, I guess. But so this is the way that I am kind of having my supper. I bake these cookies and I have this silent conversation in my mind with my grandparents. And then afterwards, what I did last year was, after I made the cookies, then I set up a little altar, ancestor altar for them, and left offerings of the cookies, on my altar for them. So I think for me, this is a great way to celebrate Samhain outside of my normal Halloween activities, which, like I talked about before, kind of, relate to Samhain anyway. We're still going to carve jack-o'-lanterns. We don't pass out candy here, though. My street doesn't get any. It's kind of a main thoroughfare, so we don't get, we don't have sidewalks. People don't drive by here for trick-or-treating, but I leave the cookies out, so do that. But anyways, So I'm gonna keep putting these cookies out, and I'll be back when it's all finished. Okay, so these are the no-bake cookies that my maternal grandmother made. And these are those sugar cookies that I was working on in the beginning. So I'll plate these up. I'll cut up the sugar cookies and show you what they look like on the inside. I know it still kind of looks like a cake, but trust me, it's a cookie. Alright, so here is my plate of cookies. There's that sugar cookie bar thing. We just called them cookies, but I know it's kind of like a sugar cookie bar, I guess. Really good though. Okay, there you have it. That is how I celebrate Samhain that I did last year, and now this will be my second year celebrating by honoring my ancestors with cookies that my grandmothers made. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe. Until next time, goodbye for now.